What's going on, everybody? The corner man here, Ryan the Mighty Quinn. We're going to talk about what we saw last night with UFC 273, and we're going to break down what we have to see forward going into UFC Vegas 51 and beyond. Great night of fights. I just up and down the card. It came what they were showing for. I really did love it. We'll start at the way beginning, and then we'll work our way down. We got a lot to talk about. The first fight I saw that came to mind was what's her name? Hanson. She was setting up those double legs. She wasn't setting up those double legs. Rather, she needs to use boxing on her way in. She would have been able to set those double legs up a lot better. She didn't use it. She had a great level change. We're gonna skip over that. The next one that comes to mind is Raquel Pennington over Aspen Ladd. That fight I thought was a mess. Whoever Raquel and Tecia's striking coach, or whoever the head coach is who ran their camp, who put their game plans together, is magnificent. I just think it's magnificent because I would have done the same exact thing that they told that their fighters did, and with their game plan and strategy. It was fantastic. With Raquel specifically, knew she was a game opponent, knew Aspen was on a rise. I saw in Aspen Ladd's last fight, she was punching and returning to her hip. I think I even did a video on that. And I'm guessing that their camp, that Raquel Pennington's camp, saw that as well, because Raquel won that fight by finishing all the exchanges. That's exactly what happened. Yeah, she engaged a little, but then she let herself be reactive and she finished every exchange. She put a stamp on everything, leading to a tough unanimous decision win. Great job, Raquel. We're going to be seeing a lot more out of you coming soon. I know it. You're always going to be named to being a contender. My man Alexei next. What can you say about Alexei? 44 years young. He's going to be fighting for another 10 years, like he said. Wonderful family man, as you saw with his wife in thereafter. Just that schoolboy choke is exactly what it is. There's no one else in the world that could pull it off quite like him. People don't realize the amount of people that he's fought. He fought Chael Sonnen, submitted Crow Cop, submitted Mark Hunt. The guy has fought a who's who of people. And his outstanding grappling is going to keep him in this game for a long time. And he just knows how to be a martial artist, always be ready. It's fantastic. I love watching him fight. I'm so happy he's still doing his thing. Congratulations, bud. Oh, Ian Gary. Now, I was watch whenever I see fighters like Ian Gary, I immediately think of me and how I would try to beat them, because that's just the fighter in me. Like, I'm just thinking, oh, he's on the rise. How would I stumble him? Because that's what I always wanted to do when I was active. I don't know how I would be able to do that with an Ian Gary. He just he is so tough to engage on. I thought that with Darian Weeks, I thought he had the right idea with the lateral movement. I've talked about in videos before, lateral movement to cut off the cage on him. However, he didn't, and now this is easier said than done. He didn't really move his head with punches on the way in. That would have been more effective. You got to make it a little ugly to get inside that telephone booth and score. Now, that being said, Ian Gary, that front kick was so scary that he was throwing, and just the way he was able to keep range was like better than Stephen Thompson I've ever seen do. And he was awesome. Like, to be built like that and be that fast is scary. It's very scary. I think we got a lot coming on. I think that guy they need to talk about fighting that guy against top contenders in the same breath that they talk about Khamzat Chimaev, because he's got a lot to show. And I think that he's going to be fighting someone in the top 10 really soon, within the next 4 or 5 months. Next fight we got, Vince Pachel. When he fought, he was doing so well against Madsen. He had that, he got the takedown, which was amazing. That's why it's MMA. There's so many ways to skin a cat. He just took down the world-class wrestler. But that was so unnecessary for him to try to wrestle. He was winning the scoring. He was winning the point scoring on his feet. He looked great. He was in great shape. He's a competitor, clearly, as you saw in his body language. But I think the fact that he was so wanting to wrestle and wanting to beat the wrestler with his wrestling, I think that's what, it's not that he gave the fight away. He brought it to his opponent's comfort zone. That's a fight that he can win, a fight that he should have won. And I felt like he just didn't. Yeah, he got pissed off after in the third round. Madsen wrote him out. It is what it is. That's wrestling. That's a whole nother argument. Joe Rogan brought up another thing. He doesn't know why people say it's boring. I don't think it's boring either. I'm a wrestler, wrestled in college, wrestled in high school. I think that if people don't like wrestling, specifically the opponents, they better learn how to get out, which is something that Vince needs to go back and think about. You don't want to be held down, get out. Plain and simple. But he didn't need to be there. He just was so willing to engage on leg attacks. It was almost silly. But whatever. I mean, to each his own. I just would have kept it standing because he was winning, especially with those calf kicks too. He was great. Now, Tecia Torres. I thought that Tecia won that fight. We're going to circle back on that later. Again, talking about Raquel Pennington, their team in Colorado put together a masterful game plan for both of them. I really love when you're getting an aggressive grappler, a superior grappler coming at you, specifically somebody who's bigger, that straight right, straight left to the body, the way Tecia was doing. Tecia was also doing the roundhouse kicks to the body. That keeps them at range, that stops their forward progression. Tecia was doing so well of scoring off that, and her defense was great. I thought that was the right game plan. She was cutting corners, specifically in the first round. She looked so quick when she was cutting those corners. I just thought it was a great game plan. The aggressive grappling by Mackenzie Dern was just that was what won it, I guess. It was fun to watch. You don't see people pull guard like that's like Damian Maia style and try to work jiu-jitsu. The only people I've seen work jiu-jitsu off the fence like we saw last night with Mackenzie Dern is Damian Maia, Charles Oliveira. Obviously two names that everyone knows very well. Now, I think that I thought that she ended up being a little more reactive, even though like she was able to tie Tecia up. That Kimura was tight. I don't know how Tecia got out of that. Then she went to the knee bar. Tecia was able to escape a few times. Yeah, I just overall, I felt that that went Ticia's way. And then the analytics showed after the stats showed that Tecia had more. We'll get back into that later. We're going to talk about that. Now, the main event before the main events, Burns versus Shimaev. Now, I said earlier on in another video, I thought Burns was going to bring it. He was going to be in that fight and eventually be controlled. Unfortunately, that's what happened. But man, I don't think that Burns loses that fight 9 times out of 10. I think that he wins at least 4 out of 10. We did see that Shimaev is human. He did bring it to Burns that first round, but then that second round, I believe he was dropped twice. He was taken down. Now, going forward, I don't think that the UFC really saw, and I was kind of Googling before this, I don't think the UFC really saw what they wanted to see to have him and Covington in a co-main event of a pay-per-view later down this year, or even a main event. Although I don't know. There's a lot of title fights coming up. I don't see the main non-title fight being a main event, or even headlining. I just don't see that fight. Screw the headlines. I don't see that fight. I don't see that fight as what they thought it was going to be right now. The way I felt Shimaev kind of he faded a little bit. Now that's for 2 reasons. You want to be careful against the jiu-jitsu guy later on in the rounds, but I thought that they wanted that to be more dominant because I'm telling you right now, Colby Covington's not going to fade the way Gilbert Burns did. Colby's a little bit bigger than Gilbert. The wrestling and stamina just doesn't fade, and he's going to be able to put Shimaev in these scrambles that he's not used to. Shimaev has great north-south speed, and that's what Burns was able to capitalize on. That explosive in and out, or just straight forward. Colby Covington can go every which direction. He could scramble like a Division I wrestler. That's something that a lot of those Russian fighters they're not apt to. I think that hold on one second. So I think that we're still going to wait and see. Like I said previously, we're going to wait and see what happens next week with Bilal Muhammad and Vicente Luque. I kind of think that winner of that fight fights Shimaev next. I was kind of looking all day or on off all day. I don't think Dana White, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he truly committed to. I just said he thinks it would be a big fight between Shimaev and Covington. I don't feel like he committed to it. Probably this is why the consolation fight next week. I think a winner of that, first of all, Shimaev's never going to, well, not never. He's not going to be seeing anybody off a loss his next fight. They want to try to push him. You're not going to push him off a loss. I'm not, and now when I say all this, I don't say in a sense that his stock has dropped, but I just think that they want to wait and see before they really start pushing that fight. Now, I think next week, like I said, I think next week, winner of next week probably gets Shimaev. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, to try to see which direction it's going. Now, it's kind of funny where, you know, he fought, the number 2 ranked fighter in the division, and you can't go backwards. Not that they were going to, but like he's going to be fighting top 5 fighters for at least the next year. That's what that's going to be at. So that's why I think he's going to be fighting the winner of that. Now, we're going to talk about the main event first because I really want to talk about the co-main event. And that's going to segue into something else. Now, Alex Volkanovski just completely dominated the Korean Zombie. I thought it was a great stoppage by the refs. They gave the Korean Zombie his due respect, let him go out on a shield, let him try to make things happen. And you know what? The Zombie did look pretty good. I was joking that his hair part like never moved, but just Volkanovski, he's arguably on his way to being the pound for pound. I think that Kamaru Usman is right now, but he might be coming the pound for pound champion in the UFC. The guy just gets better everywhere. He is so explosive. He's so quick. His hands are good. His kicking, his jiu-jitsu, his wrestling. He's so like up and down. Like he's so great. Now, let's go back up to Petr Yan versus Aljamain Sterling. I thought Sterling won the fight, but judging by the way the judges were scoring all night or previously, I thought it was going to go to Yan. And this is kind of a problem that people need to like. This just shows the inconsistency in the judges. Now, like I said, I had no problem with Sterling winning the fight. I kind of thought it was going that way, especially with the big mistakes with the single leg defense that Yan was doing. That's an instinct that could be broken. He's probably not going to make that mistake come next camp. That's just basic single leg defense that somebody who's got to get used to from the wrestling aspect. That is a form of a single leg defense, but it's not in the sense that he was using it. That's like more, you got to get the head out of position, and Sterling is so good at taking the back as it is. It just wasn't the right time for that, and he paid dearly. He lost rounds over it. So the round in question is round 1. Now, why am I giving the judges grief over this? Dana White said too, I think the judges blew it. And this is why this is a problem. This is why this is a big deal with these judges. It's not a matter of I think we're getting a little better because fighters have seceded to, okay, it's the judges' game that we're playing and we got to work with that. They're not really arguing as much, but when the judges show inconsistency on this level, it's really a problem. Now, this is why we're going to circle back to Tecia. I felt that Tecia Torres beat Mackenzie Dern last night, but the judges showed in that fight that tonight we're looking for cage control. Now, Tecia was winning those rounds by being counteroffensive, kind of on her back pedal, but she was scoring punches. Mackenzie won because she was coming forward and controlling the cage. That's what happened. That's what we saw. Okay, fine. That's why I wasn't kicking and screaming when it went to Mackenzie, although I still felt that Tecia won. Now, the judges from that fight going forward have now established that this is the way we're calling it tonight. Tonight, cage control is more important than scoring and damage. That's what they established with that fight. You got to stick with that going forward. This is the equivalent of, okay, like in baseball, they always say about umpires, you can't argue balls and strikes, but as long as he's consistent with everybody, he's got a high strike zone today. He's giving the pitchers the outside corner. As long as he's consistent with that crazy strike zone for both teams, no problem. We didn't see that last night with the judges in MMA. Now, like they switched it up, because if they were being consistent, they would have given Petr Yan that first round because he went forward and controlled the cage, even though Sterling was scoring. And this is an issue. This is where we have a disconnect in between the fighters and the judges. The judges have to be protected. There's no question. They really just have to come up with a way to let the judges be protected, but also know they're accountable. And they have to just be consistent with what they're looking at for every fight. Okay, now it does get to the point where, this judge, he likes to see this judge, he likes to see that. It's so tough when there's 3 different judges scoring. So in a sense, this is what keeps the human error. And I know everyone says, if you're not going to fight her out, if you're going to finish him, then what does it matter? It's not that easy, especially at the world class level between fighters 1 and 2 in the world. um, so or if, between fighter 29 and 30 for that matter. So the judges really just do need to let us know and be consistent with, we're watching this tonight. This is what we want to see. You can't switch it up. You can't call a strike at the letters in the first inning and then call it a ball in innings 5 and 7 and then go back to inning 9. It's a strike again. And that's what we're seeing. Now, I kind of was trying to think of some different ways we could do this. My first thought, which after I rethought, I think a lot when I'm mowing the lawn. I was mowing the lawn today. So I was like, how could they fix this? The first thought I had, I thought sounded great when I was first, and then I smacked myself because it was so stupid. I said, I'm going to run all this. John McCarthy's coming on later this week. I'm going to be running this by him. So my first thought was, what if you let the fighters in their camps know who was judging their fights weeks out from the fight? Because then they know, or at least the coaches might be able to see what the judges are looking at. And on paper, that sounds great, but it's a stupid idea because the judges, they're not being consistent within one night, let alone, over a period of a few weeks. And B, that's when the greasing happens. A lot of these fighters and coaches, they do jujitsu with these judges. They see them all the time. And don't kid yourself. Don't get it twisted. Greasing happens everywhere. A little money here, a little money there. It's better they don't know who the judges are till the night of, probably. Or, they probably find out a week before. Now, there is another solution that I think. Those of you who don't know, the referees have a rules meeting or have a pre-fight meeting with each individual fighter that they're going to be reffing that night. They basically just let them know what they're going to be calling like this. Oh, this is now a foul. I don't want to see this. I'll let you fight through here if you're bleeding, if you look, but I'm going to call it if this. They lay down their rules. They lay down like what they're looking for. So everyone's in the know. And now we don't have to have this conversation in the cage. The judges should do that. There should be another meeting on fight week, just saying, hey, listen, we want to see cage control. Hey, listen, we want to see scoring. We want to see damage. So everyone knows exactly what the fight is. So we're on the same page. The judges, they got to do that. And there has to be one more meeting scheduled in there to let these people know. There kind of is, I remember, I forget his name, the commissioner of Connecticut. He used to love hearing himself speak. I think it was Mazzilli, at Mohegan Sun. He used to have a whole meeting and he used to kind of let us know what was going on, what we want to see. He kind of did that to his credit. What was fines, what wasn't. So, judges just kind of have to do that. Listen, this is what we're looking for. We don't care about this as much. So then, the other solution is, I was always kind of bullish too, but I think we need it. And it totally makes sense, is open scoring. Now, ultimately, you still get that same excitement if you have open scoring for the whole fight, with the exception of the last round, because you still don't know in most of these. I think they need to do that. Every other major sport has open scoring. Boxing doesn't. We're not boxing, though. We're trying to differentiate ourselves as it is. And, it is a different fight. It is a different game if you're up by a lot. I mean, I know so many times if I was winning 2 rounds to 3, guy was dangerous here, or 2 rounds to none going into the 3rd round, I would take the 3rd round off. Obviously you got to be careful with that, but I was, this is when we were very confident. If I knew I was down 2 rounds to none, I was going crazy. I was lighting the roof on fire trying to finish this dude. So I think that would help a lot. I guess in theory, they're trying to think in a sense that it's not going to, then we're going to see less excitement in the 3rd round if people know, or 5th round when things are going, or people are going to know when to take this round off, but whatever, that's part of the game. And honestly, you're going to see at least 1 or 2 exciting rounds in there overall. I bet if they did a trial run with 6 months of open scoring, they will not be sorry for it. So I am all about the open scoring. Let's see what else I got here. Talked about Muhammad Luke. Really looking forward to UFC Vegas 51 next week. Talked about Gary. Oh, and I was kind of discussing too about the Pichel Madsen fight with the pitmaster John Hackelman, who's going to be on one of these upcoming weeks, especially before Glover Teixeira's fight. Just about how unnecessary it was going for that takedown, and I'll have him on here too. But Guys, I guess that's it. We also got some big Bellator fights coming up next week. I know my man Rakim Cleveland's pulling to pull that upset. And we got a lot of good stuff. I'm going to be speaking with John McCarthy, like I said, as well as Dustin Poirier during the week. We're going to have them on next week. I have James Krause coming out on Tuesday. Can't wait about that. And that's it, guys. Have a great week. I'll see you next time.